interesting to kind of close out some cases or identify some people that are missing persons. Specifically, if we can get some closure for people and get some justice.
Informed her police officer in Henderson, Nevada.
It says K-Bar and United States Marine Corps. I mean, the truth is, it is a huge night.
I'm Janti. I'm one of the top real estate investors in Las Vegas.
Tell Diana, look, I think that Kellis is going to kill me. Any videos where you have an officer basically, they don't have ID, they can't get into a hotel room.
We're here, Problem Solver, the Problem Solver podcast. There's a lot of problems out there. Today we have Aaron. I was about to say Aaron Guild. Aaron with Guild Mortgage. Yeah. Steve Hawks, as usual, Platinum real estate professionals. We have a professional here today. Dave Kohlmeier, the Problem Solver, retired police officer, 17 years as a police officer, helped people with problems the last 10 years, worked in law firms, helping people. I am not an attorney. I'm not giving legal advice. This is my opinion, my suggestion, resources, whatever I say. There's some rumors out there that I'm giving legal advice. That's not true. So the bottom line is that's why I'm making that declaration today. But anyway, Steve and Aaron, I appreciate you guys coming today. Mortgage experience, real estate experience. There's a lot of things that are going on, so I figured we'll jump with some different real estate topics. I guess my first question to you is...
Well, Aaron's not just loan officer. He's one of the best. He's been doing it, what, 30 years?
25 years, Steve.
And he was around during the crash. REOs, bank-owned. He was buddies with Zillow. He was a countrywide guy.
I wouldn't say buddies. He was my boss, but yeah.
He was... if you might have seen Aaron on CNBC, you know.
Okay.
Friends of Mozilla Loans.
No.
Just kidding. We cut that out.
Sleeping around the block.
So,
but anyways, he's super experienced, and people go to Aaron to get deals done because they know if he sends a pre-approval, if you're a realtor and you send a pre-approval over with Aaron, and you send another deal with like a internet company or something, and the other deal's higher, they're going to take his if as long as it's close because they know it's going to close with him. That's the difference.
So other realtors know you.
I think most do. Yeah, I think I do a pretty good job of branding myself, and I've been on the market forever. That's what Steve's really trying to say is that I'm super old and been here forever.
So actually, you're saying that realtors would know the difference between him and a Rocket Mortgage
100%
pre-qual.
100%.
Got it. Okay, cool.
And if they don't, I try to tell them that. So I usually call and say, "Hey, here's the difference." You know,
I like that.
If we pre-approve somebody, we're locking it down, Dave. We're not issuing bogus letters. We're not issuing letters based on a credit report, which is, it's one of the challenges today, quite frankly. There's a lot of cancellations in the market today. Cancellations are at an all-time high, and one of the reasons is because the buyer goes and here's what he wants to hear from somebody, here's the rate he wants to hear from somebody, and it's all nonsense. So when they get to finally buy the house and that loan doesn't come through, well, they get frustrated with the market and they cancel.
So give us a quick update on the market, what's going on. Craziness in LA. I mean, I know a lot of things going on. Give us just like a quick scenario of what's going on today.
Like Aaron said, with the highest cancellations ever. I mean, one of the reports said 20%. It's not even close. It's more like 42%. We asked these title companies. I mean, the title company we work with, several of them are over 35%. Like he just said, the number one reason is these buyers are going to these lead generation companies, and they're getting these pre-approvals. And realtors are getting leads from these companies, and they're not pushing back. They can't use another lender because they won't get the leads, right? The buyers' agents won't get the future leads from this company. So even though they know that this lender is probably not pre-approved, they push it forward, right? And then a lot of agents don't know on the listing side that this isn't a pre-approved loan. So 10, 15 days down the road, it gets canceled. The other one, you see this all the time.
Yeah, it happens all the time. So, like Steve said, so the way a buyer finds their agent today a lot of times is through online. And if they got that online lead, it comes with a mortgage company attached to it. And so that loan officer at the other end may not have done a great job in the pre-approval. And so once the buyer goes in, they're already scared, right? Rates are high, values are high. Should I be buying? Shouldn't I be buying? There's already a lot of trepidation. And then they go into the process and it doesn't happen. And their lender's driving them crazy because they can't qualify. So as soon as they get told no, they in the good old days when the market was hotter and it was more of a buyer's market, where buyers wanted so many houses, they'll do anything to make it happen. But today, where they're already afraid, if the lender starts to become too cumbersome, or the repairs are too big, or the seller says something to upset them,
they drop out.
So
like it's kind of scary time, so people just drop out.
Yeah. They already were afraid, right? And now all they need is an excuse to get out.
When you say buyer leads, they're hooked up always with a mortgage company? Like they have to use the mortgage company that the leads come from?
Yes.
On the most part.
If they don't get future leads. And
Got
so
it.
that's how you're able to that's how these poor loan officers and poor lenders are getting a lot of business. It's not because they're good. It's because they're generating the leads. This is,
How do they generate the leads?
the portals, right? Yeah, clear cooperation policy is a major issue right now, major problem that needs to be fixed. That's one of the problems why buyers are forced to go to these sites, is because it's the clear cooperation policies actually hurt competition on that. But to other reasons that we haven't seen in the past are coming back. Some of them we have seen in the past. The insurance. People are getting these quotes on their insurance, and then come closing, they get the actual quote, and it screws up their debt ratio, or they're like, oh, you know what, this is too much. And then another thing that we're seeing lately, all these are adding to the cancellations, right? It's just not one thing anymore. It's a combination. People go into contract. They go, yeah, we'll pay $500 for that house. Well, 2 more come on the market at $480. Well, they're not going to buy that house at $500 anymore. So they say, hey, we'll buy it for $480 or we'll cancel. And that's another reason why they cancel. If they're seeing all these houses come on the market, and like Aaron said, oh, you know what? We'll get out of it for some reason. HOA. There's a lot of loopholes to get out of the contracts in Vegas, right? So they see a house come on the market less. They see a new home come on the market. That the builder sends them an email that says, hey, we just dropped our houses $50,000. And that just happened. I mean, there were some houses that were brand new builder. They were selling for $550. Now they're selling for $505. Well, if I'm in a contract on a resale, I'm not going to go for it. I'm buying that new home, especially at the lower interest rate. And see what happens with these lead generation companies. When people are looking for houses and they're looking for resales, well, they get emails from the lead generation companies about the new homes. So when the new homes drop their prices now, they're also getting emails from these lead generation companies, and that's how they're finding out about that. And then another reason is lenders, they raise the cost of credit reports.
A lot. Yeah.
So these smaller companies are like, hey, man, we can't be pulling credit all the time. Well, the realtors want to know. You can't. I don't care about your $100 credit report. So now they got you can talk more about this. They have for $35 a soft pull.
Uh-huh.
So these lenders are pulling a soft pull and saying, oh, yeah, their credit's good. And then when they do the full credit, 21 or whatever, 15, 20 days later, something shows up on the credit report. Oh, we didn't know about this. Well, why not? Well, because we paid the $35 one instead of the $100 one because our mortgage broker or mortgage company owner said, hey, we got to cut the cost on this. I mean, look, you pull 100 credit reports, that's $10,000. If you pull 100 of the small one, that's $3,500. So that's a big reason.
And that comes from the credit report agencies. Credit report agencies have really raised their fees. So you'll find today that if you go all the way through a closed transaction, you may pay up to $250 to $500 for credit reports, just for credit reports. So he's right. Lenders today have to make a decision based on conversation if it's worth it to even pull your credit. So if they pull a soft pull, and then a lot of customers ask for soft pull. They don't want a hard pull because if you do a hard pull, you know what happens next. 80 to 100 texts and phone calls from third-party companies because the credit bureaus sell your information. Your lender doesn't sell the information, but the actual credit bureau sells that lead to other lenders, and now it's game on. And they will blast you like crazy for days. Anybody who's recently had the credit pull knows, and so so a lot of lenders don't want that to happen either. So they pull a soft credit pull. So there's a lot of stuff going on industry wide. Steve doesn't want to name names, but the big ones are Zillow and Redfin, right? So Zillow and Redfin, if you're getting leads from the giants, right? They own mortgage companies, and so at the end of the day, look, they can't force you to use them. Right, that would be against the law, but they can highly suggest you use them, and you as the agent who's getting those leads, they can hold you accountable to a retention. So, back in the day when I worked at the biggest bank in America, they would have our agents. We had agents assigned to us as well, and they would have retention scores. So how many transactions a year? So you did 100 transactions last year with us. How many times did home loans get the opportunity as well? Well, what's the number? If it has to be 40%, 50%, 60%, whatever the number they're trying to drive, that's the number it has to be. And so if it's not, right, so let's say you are one of those preferred agents for one of those online lead generation companies and their home loans team isn't getting 30% of the transactions, you may lose the account.
Quick question, with all these realtors that are out there.
It's funny because I was one of those bank-owned agents, and I had to make sure that I got a certain amount of loans to that bank, or they wouldn't.
They wouldn't supply you.
They wouldn't supply me new foreclosures of bank owned. And back then, that was 95% of the market was short selling foreclosures. Yeah.
And here's the thing, Steve, and I'll talk about it now. I wouldn't talk about it back then, but the bank was awful. We were horrible at home loans. We couldn't deliver a home loan on time if our life depended on it. Yet Steve is being held accountable to make sure he refers us, right? So not only do I have to refer you, I got to refer a really bad loan officer in a bad system that's not going to get the loan closed, right? Or is going to really struggle. But he has to still do it, or else he's not going to keep the business.
And here's the funny part: if we didn't close, or if we didn't close on time, we got penalized. Well, we're not closing, and we're not closing on time because you're forcing us to use this lender that is not good. Because the good loan officers are with companies that don't have to pay those fat fees. Because those lenders were getting a lot of business, but they also had huge splits, right? So my scores would go down if we didn't close on time or it didn't close. Well, you forced us to use that lender. My lender, first of all, we would have closed on time, and second of all, I wouldn't even put that buyer in escrow because my lender would have told me in 3 days they couldn't get a loan. Not 3 weeks.
Everything repeats itself, Steve.
Yes.
It's interesting because you see
it don't rhyme, but it's it doesn't repeat, but it rhymes,
It
right?
rhymes, exactly.
It's interesting because these days, like in the police world, we say it's performance goal objective. Like you had to write tickets in New York City as a cop.
Yeah.
So you had to write 20 tickets a month and then like one arrest to stay with your partner in the car. Otherwise, you'd be disciplined. So that when you say like penalize, you really are being disciplined.
Yeah.
You're basically not performing.
So
what you
it's the exact same thing, right? Like, what if no crime's being committed in front of you?
Right.
So you still got to go create 20
You gotta look for
tickets,
crime.
and
You gotta
you
find-
got to find a crime.
That's right.
And if something's marginal,
That was the pressure.
And if
Yes.
something's marginal, right? And let's say you're on the end of the month and you haven't pulled that arrest yet, you got to find a crime.
So I'll share with you something you don't know, but it's a New York City thing. Like you've had a shopping cart. That if you was like a homeless guy, you had a shopping cart. So there was like I'm brand new, I'm 22 years old, watching New York City cops as I'm a cop, right? Basically, if someone had a shopping cart, it's illegal. It's possession of stolen property because that cart belongs to the supermarket.
Yep.
So if the person needed one arrest a month, they would go out look for a person with a shopping cart and arrest them for the stolen. Now it's not corruption. It's true.
Yes.
How many people are in New York City with a shopping cart that's homeless? So they make the arrest one a month just so they would still not be disciplined or penalized.
And it's a great analogy because it's not a quality arrest. It's an arrest, but it's not a quality arrest. Same thing here.
But the pressure.
It's a loan, not a quality loan, but at least I pulled the loan in. But now, who are we going to frustrate?
Yeah.
It's a pre-approval.
It's a pre-approval.
Yes,
I
yes,
need the pre-approval.
yes,
I need
yes.
it for my conversion.
Are there enough?
Even though we know it's not going to go through.
Right.
Are there enough leads on Zillow and Redfin to support all the realtors that are out there? I mean, it can't be thousands and thousands of leads. I mean, how many realtors are there right now active?
Well, it's funny you asked this because realtors bought 1.4 million leads last year?
Yeah.
The realtors bought something about 1.4 million leads, and how many transactions closed?
I don't know the exact number. It was
Like
it
400 or
was
500?
So it was 4 million or so in resale transactions. So what averaged 350,000? So what is that? 10,000?
Yeah, it was some
homes?
like crazy amount of leads that were
She's saying like
bought. I don't know.
100,000
100,000 homes, right?
and a 1.4 million leads.
It was some ridiculous figure. I can't remember. No, it was 145 million leads.
104. Okay.
I think it was 120 million leads. It was
So
some
maybe
crazy amount of leads.
1%. Not even 1%.
Yeah, it was a crazy amount of leads.
But do you normally pay per lead? Is it just when the deal comes through?
Well, no, they've changed it now. Now some people pay per deal, a percentage. Like a lot of these lead generation companies are paying, charging the buyer, which passes it on the buyer's. The lead gen companies are quote charging the buyer's agent, but not really because the buyer is paying it, right? So it's anywhere from 20 to 40 to 50%. Some companies are charging 70% now. So 70% goes to the lead gen company, and 30% goes to the agent.
How does it work? This is a good question. I never really asked that, but how does it work? Because technically, when you give money, like the 50%, doesn't have to be to a licensed realtor. This is to an actual company.
The company is a licensed real estate company. They don't have to be a realtor. So anyone can go get their real estate license and then bring in referral fees. Yeah. But the buyers don't know about it, right? The buyers and the sellers, they don't. Most of them, I don't know any that know that. We tell them sometimes because on listings we tell them, hey, we got to charge this. We got to also add 25 to 40% because we got to pay this company that referred you. Well, why didn't I just call you? Nobody told me this. The sellers are like, well, why am I paying extra? Well, you're paying extra because you didn't call me direct. You called that company, so I gotta add this on. So that's what agents are doing now. It's one of the reasons why you see commissions skyrocketing. I mean, commissions have skyrocketed since the settlement. several reasons why. So one of the main reasons why the lead generation companies are up their amount. A lot of lead gen companies used to charge 10, 15 or per lead. Now it's anywhere, like I said, anywhere from 30 to 70%. That the lead gen companies are charging the agent, whether it's a listing or a buy side. Well, that has to be passed on to the consumer, because if you're paying, if you're getting a commission of 2% and you got to pay out 40 or 50% and you got to pay another split, can't do it. So I got to charge more. So that has allowed. And now that these buyers, a lot of these buyers and sellers, the first, communication they usually get with a real estate company is through these lead gen companies. Well, if all the lead gen company agents are charging 3%, at least 3%, because they got to pay these big splits, well, now it's easier for other agents to do the same thing. So they've caused commissions to actually go up. And then a lot of agents aren't using the buyer-broker agreement. The buyer-broker agreement was supposed to, as soon as you meet that client, that buyer, you're supposed to have them sign a buyer-broker agreement with the amount you're going to charge, okay? Well, many agents don't do that, all right? And the companies, there's some states where you don't have to do the buyer-broker agreement, so it overrode the thing. But they're using a lot of these agreements called touring agreements or whatever agreement they might call it, where it doesn't have the commission on there, right? So you're showing the property, but you're not telling that person how much you're going to charge. That wasn't part of the settlement. The settlement says you got to tell that buyer what you're going to charge him before you make the tour, before you show the house, right? And that's part of the what's going on now with these attorneys is they're fighting this, going, wait a minute. A lot of these companies are using these, agreements that don't have the commission on the first time. So they go in and it's kind of a joke, show for free, then charge you 3, right? That's what's going on right now. Because, I looked at my...
So it's a different agreement than the buyer's broker agreement? It's like their own...
Yeah, so the buyer-broker agreement per the settlement was supposed to have the commission on before you tour. Well, a lot of companies aren't doing that. And if the big companies aren't doing it, then the small to medium companies, if they do it, it's a disadvantage.
So what do they sign the buyer's broker agreement without numbers on there?
Correct. Basically, it's a buyer-broker agreement without any numbers.
Which is not supposed to be. It's supposed to be numbers there.
They're supposed to be the
But you
commission
don't know
on there.
because you're submitting the offers, right? Or you're going...
Well, no. Once they submit the offer, then they have them backdate the buyer-broker agreement, or they sign the buyer-broker agreement when they do the offer. But here's the thing. When you have a majority of the agents or a large percentage of the agents and companies doing that, it forces the other companies to do it too. Because if I'm a buyer and I call you at these lead gen companies, lead gen says, oh, yeah, you don't have to sign this. Okay. This is just an agreement that allows me to show you the house. I'm not going to put any fee on here. Okay. Well, if that same buyer calls their friend or the person they work with
And they say 3%?
and says, hey, you got to sign this agreement. This is how much I'm going to charge you. Well, I don't have to sign that with these guys. I just called this company and I don't have to. Oh, okay, well, I'll do it too. With that you force that other buyer agent, that realtor, to also not follow the
But are realtors
settlement.
afraid that they may get in trouble? I mean, this is something new because you're supposed to put the numbers down.
Well, listen, when these companies came out and said, hey, these tour agreements, this is
the
how
touring
we're going to
agreements,
this we're going to do it. And AR didn't say you couldn't use touring agreements. And our local MLSs, the local MLSs didn't say anything about not using touring agreements.
But
So
it is a different agreement.
If you're silent, what does that mean? They didn't come out and say, no, you can't use these because it doesn't have the commission on them.
Well, it'd be interesting if you just put TBD, like to be determined.
Can't do that.
You're not supposed to do that.
Per the
So it's
settlement.
blank.
Yeah. Per
But
the
blank
settlement.
is not better anyway. It's just like...
They're not supposed to be blank either.
No, if hey, look,
But the touring agreement is a different agreement, which is interesting, right?
Yeah.
Like they get around it by just saying, I'm just touring the location. We didn't agree on...
in my opinion, I say, hey, if you're going to use the touring agreement, don't use anything at all. Because the touring agreement shows that you're actually thinking on ways how to get around it. Where the buyer, if you
But
don't...
the new home people are doing that.
on
Or everyone's doing the touring agreement.
lead generation companies are doing it. A lot of realtors are doing it now. Because you don't have to have that conversation with the buyer and you don't have to negotiate the commission. And it's
What a
like I
mess.
said, there's a lot of people. In fact, that's not my opinion now. It's not just that's what's people have different opinions
Mm-hmm.
on it if it's legit or not, right? But one of the attorneys filed an appeal, And that was one of the examples that she used, and she said that they're bait and switching people. And that's where the show for free, then charge you $3 came into play.
Sounds like a good billboard.
Yeah. Well, it's funny now. You can ask any realtor what the go. Many companies in Vegas now are, when you sign up with them, that some of the brokers are telling the agents, when you work with us, you have to charge 3% on the contract, on the buyer side, on your buyer's broker agreement. This is in their contract. Well, if enough people do that, they're doing the opposite of what was going on before, right? They're doing, it's just another workaround. So this will last for a little while, but as this goes through the courts,
something's gonna come out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one attorney's already mentioned it. So look, when you have thousands of transactions using these agreements, and it's not hidden, it's everybody knows about it.
Okay, let's talk about this. So right now, if a brand new homeowner, person wants to buy a home, where are we at? Where under $400,000 homes, multiple offers, where are we at right now for someone who wants to buy a home in Vegas?
I mean,
what's the average?
To me, there's a lot of inventory under 400,000 today, right? The challenge is what does it look like? So there's a lot of homes for sale, right, Steve? I mean, I pulled the other day. I think I pulled under 350,000. I want to say there was 2,000 homes, maybe more.
Under 350.
Under 350,
because
that's really a starter point, right? So that's a starter home today in Las Vegas. And the average household income to qualify for that house is probably 80,000, 90,000, which is still a lot of money, right? But that's what it takes to buy a house today because where interest rates are. But there's inventory is growing without question. But is the activity there?
Yeah. So people are talking about the crash, right?
Yeah.
So is the Vegas market crashing?
Well, is it crash or correction?
Well, that's right. First of all, let's
what's a crash?
What's a crash?
Right.
20% is a traditional crash. And the biggest misleading figure is the median price, right? Because the median price is a irrelevant figure. Why they use that, I don't know. It's 2025. Let's break it down.
Which, by the way, the median price in Las Vegas last month went up by like 5%. So that caused a lot of hullabaloo because everybody's like, prices are dropping. They're not going up. But the median price went up. Median just means the middle, right? So it was like 480,000 or some crazy number. Just means that half the houses sold for over 480 and half the houses were under. That was like 5% more than last year. So if you're reading that, you think the Las Vegas market is going up. But if you look at the sales were kind of anemic last month. And what was the average sales price of those homes, right? So, Steve, what were you going to say?
Exactly. It doesn't, the median price, all those home sales could have gone down and the median price still could have gone up.
Yeah.
And the way that happens is just less houses in the 300 to 400 sold, right? If you had more houses that were 600,000 and 700,000 that sold more than the 400, when I say more in volume, not in price, like if an $800,000 house drops to 650, that's actually going to technically raise the median, right?
Yep.
But people don't understand this. So in Vegas, are we going to have a crash? Well, my opinion, above 600, if you define a crash as a drop in 20%, yes, that's not that much money. See, people get nervous when they hear crash because 20%. Well, before, throughout the last 100 years, if you told someone that their house was going to drop 20%, that was a nightmare scenario, and that was a crash because that 20%, let's just talk Vegas, 20% in Vegas was 10 to 15 years of equity.
Right.
So if you said your property's going to drop 20%, oh, sell now, that's a crash. Because it took me 10 to 15 years to get that 20%. Now, if your house drops 20%, it's technically a crash, but it doesn't have the same impact because that 20% only took you 18 months.
Right.
It's 18 months. So if I tell you, hey, your house is going to crash 20%. Oh, no. Oh, wait a minute. Your house is going to go back to March of 2023 prices. Oh, okay. Even if the houses went back to March of 2022, people are still going to make more money than they ever imagined in 2019.
To me, it's the biggest challenge in the market. I mean, you bought a house in 2019. You paid $400,000 for it, right? You hoped that in 10, 12 years, the thing would be worth $600,000, and it happened in 3, right? And now you're thinking about selling it, and now you want all 6, right? And you're not willing to give up. I mean, like you just said, if I got to give back 20% of it, I still crushed it.
Right.
Take the W, move on.
Right.
But so many sellers today, though, they don't think that way. They want every bit of equity they
want more.
gain in 22 and 23, or 21 and 22.
I messed up. I should have sold. My house crashed. I'm losing $75,000. What are you talking about, bro? You bought this for $400. You're selling it for $700.
Right.
You're
crushed
making
it.
$300.
You killed
yeah,
it.
but it was $800. My neighbor just sold for $800. A lot of houses doubled. A lot of houses in Vegas went up 100% from 2020 to 2024.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing, so when someone says, "Hey, is the market crashing?" Well, based on that, homes above 500, yeah, they're probably going to drop 20%. But homes under 400, under 450, that's where it gets dicey. And that's why the median price is so misleading, because the hedge funds have bought so many homes under 500 that there's still a small amount of homes available in the pool that could actually go on the market. So when you take away, when you put that into the factor, like the RJ, the guy from Lead Institute, Dr. McCoy, super good. He did an event at LVR, and 25% of the homes in North Las Vegas are owned by investors, right? Well, if you take 25%, that's all the homes. If they didn't buy anything over 500, so when you drop it down below 500, they probably own over 50, 60%. Some of the neighborhoods own 50 or 60%. And a majority of those homes, as he showed, were Wall Street huge landlords that own those homes.
It's such a great point, because the buy box for Wall Street was 400 and under, 3 bedrooms or more. The home had a specific description, right? So those homes, all those homes today are probably worth $500,000-$600,000 a day, right? So a big percentage of those homes are owned by Wall Street. They're not coming off the market. They have renters in there.
Right.
They're happy with those rents. Those rents go up every year, even if they stay flat. They are thrilled to death with that. That's part of their investment strategy. Has nothing to do with selling those houses. Has everything to do with renting those houses. Now, they are selling a lot today, I think, to free up some cash, but they're not huge sellers.
They're not selling in Vegas.
And they're not selling in Vegas. They love Vegas.
Yeah, they're selling in Atlanta, Texas, some other, yes.
In regards to falling prices over 600 grand.
And real quick on those prices, even if the houses dropped, you just think if most houses, even if they drop 30 to 40%, they'd still be way up.
Right.
From 2019.
And Steve, let me stay on that topic for a minute. So, okay, think about it. You bought a $400,000 house, right? 2009. You put 10% down. So really, you invested $40,000. You didn't invest.
Are you saying 2009 or 2019?
2019. So $400,000 house, you really invested $40,000. So if it's worth $7 today, right? And so that's $300 in equity. You invested $40. You made 9 to 10 times on your money. What other investment in the world in the last 5 years did you do that? Maybe Bitcoin? Did Bitcoin up that much?
That's 900%.
Right.
That's 1,000%.
Right, 900%. Right. So Bitcoin's not even up that much.
What about the people that did FHA?
Right. 3.5%.
Yes.
Down. So, but they look at it like I paid 4, now it's 7. No. Yeah, you paid 4, but cash out of pocket was 40. So your real rate of return is based on your investment. It's not based on what the asset was worth, right? So, but they don't see it that way. Right. And it's so crazy, to Steve's point. So if I had to give back on $700,000, if I now have to sell it for $560,000, right? And I walk with $160,000, but I invested $40,000, still made 400% on your money.
Right.
Right? You didn't lose anything.
And we're using 2019 numbers.
Right.
If we go back to 2009, all the people that bought between 2009 and 2014, forget about it.
They paid $170 for those houses.
Yeah.
$200, right?
Yeah. And,
I'm a 2009 guy.
Yeah, a lot.
And let's also talk. A lot of people, even the homeowners that are in houses, want their prices to drop right now because the cost of living, especially in these other states that you're in.
Yeah.
I mean, people free and clear properties, they don't have any disposable income because their taxes and their insurance has gone through the roof. Not to mention the other cost of living.
So, David, insurance is a good point, because insurance, to Steve's point, and we had this discussion the other day, the insurance industry even says insurance is going up 10% a year. Minimum.
Every year.
But in some places, like, and you've been doing this, I've been doing this, when we have home buyers who buy a house that's built before 2006, let's say, you'd be shocked at how much the insurance is on the house. It could be a $400,000 house. The insurance premium may be $5,000 a year or more, right, on a house built before 2006. Or some insurance companies are just saying, I'm not going to insure them at all.
Right.
Because they know a new roof is coming.
Yep.
Right. They knew new AC is definitely coming if it hasn't been replaced. Right. So there's big expenses coming.
So they
those
won't
houses.
insure a home that's below 2006.
Some of the companies aren't insuring them.
So what do you do? I mean, is there some company out there or just a higher premium?
What you
Yeah.
get some random
Like a-
insurance
like a
company
subprime
that charges
premium.
Exactly. They
Yeah.
charge crazy amount of money. One of the largest insurers in Nevada is not insuring homes built after the year 2000 because of water damage. And don't forget, one of the reasons why Vegas had such cheap insurance for so long is because most of the homes were new. Most of the homes were new. Now that they're, all those homes from 205, 206, 207 are turning 20, right? They're 20 years old. And what happens is the main reason why they're cutting them off is because of water damage. What happens is these little, $15 pieces
PVC and shark bites.
on the pipe somewhere, whether it's the toilet or whatever. If the person isn't home and it starts leaking and then it floods the floor, well, that's 15, 20 grand. Well, what do these homeowners do? A lot of them. You know what? I need a new kitchen. I need this. So that 15, 20 grand turns into 50, 60 grand. So the insurance pays 50, 60 grand. Well, now with AI, they're looking at all those homes that they have insured that are that model match, that are in that area, that builder, that subdivision, and they cancel them. Because they know
it's coming.
They know exactly,
Right.
just like Aaron said, they know it's coming. And if somebody has a water damage claim, and they call their insurance company on their next house, they're probably going to have that insurance company is probably not going to insure them, and they're probably going to cancel on that with the water damage because
So
it's
where do you
such a
go?
problem.
I mean, eventually.
Well, a good tip for your listeners is that when you get pre-approved and you're out looking for a house, you should talk to you have to talk to your homeowner insurance now very early in the process. So it used to be we order insurance a week before closing or a couple weeks before
What's
closing.
the last thing to do?
Yeah, just to underwrite the loan, make sure that we have all the expenses in there. But today, really
check,
before,
especially the year of the house.
really, yeah, when you go tour the house, you should call your agent and say, what's it going to cost to insure this house? Because you'd be shocked. You think you're out there shopping
Right.
for a cheap house at $350 or $400, but the insurance could be $200-$300 a month.
So it's not insurance laws. It's not insurance regulations. It's just basically the insurance. What would you call it? It's not laws or regulations. It's basically their assessment.
Yeah.
It's their assessment of
Right,
the home
of the property, right.
And then using AI basically to see every home that's like my first home was 1977 square feet. They probably check a community HOA, how many insurance claims were on the 1977s. There must be a problem, and then either raise the premium or not insure it at all. Because these days, everything's like the cookie cutter, right? It was 1450 square foot.
Well, the reason why
Exactly.
insurance companies are leaving is because of regulation. They're not the states aren't allowing them to charge what they need to charge to make money. Because guess what? If they were making money at those rates, they wouldn't be leaving.
Right.
Do you leave?
And you look, it's a much bigger issue in California and Florida and Texas, but it's becoming an issue here in Southern Nevada because the age of the homes is becoming older, right? So we don't have the natural disasters as much as they do, but at the end of the day, we have homes being aged and,
Right.
and homeowners that didn't change the roof and didn't fix the plumbing and didn't do this and didn't do that. And so nowadays, like you said, because of technology, they know.
Yes.
Like it's like the reason why, a lot of people ask me, like, how can an appraisal waiver happen on my house? Well, appraisal waivers happen on your house because Fannie and Freddie have 90 years worth of data in the neighborhood. They've bought that loan 100 times in your neighborhood, and they know exactly what the house is worth.
Right.
Like the appraiser is just there as a rubber stamp to say, hey, that thing's still there. There's a home on there.
And they know how many people are default in that neighborhood. If nobody's in default, they're like,
Yeah.
we don't need it. And if someone's putting, 20% down, what's
Yeah, they take the risk out.
Yeah.
So just to recap one thing, jumping back a little bit. So in regards to crash or correction, what's your opinion? Being in the mortgage business for a long time. So right now, basically, it's June 10th. What's your thought process from June to September? And the question really comes when you say crash, is it correction as well? It's the same thing?
So
20%?
I think real estate is local. So I think that you're going to have pockets of this country that prices are going to come down. Some areas prices are going to go up. Some areas prices are going to be flat. If you're specifically asking me about Las Vegas, I think the biggest positive factor for Las Vegas is we're landlocked. It's really difficult for home builders to find a dirt to build on and to build any product that's remotely close to affordable, right? So I think if you go out there and, like Steve's saying, if you go out there, you may be able to find a house 20% below list. It doesn't mean the market crashed, but you got an amazing deal on a crash-like price, right? I think the longer we go, more sellers are going to realize the market's not going crazy. Rates aren't coming way down.
Go lower.
And yeah, if you want out of this house, that you probably are sick of by this point, because it used to be, David, the average person was staying at home 6 to 7 years. That's now 11 to 12 years. 11 to 12 years, I don't care how nice your house is, you're sick of the house, right? That's a long relationship with a house.
But you've had life changes too.
And you've had life changes.
Your kids have graduated. I don't need this.
Right.
You know how many people I got in houses right now that they're in these big houses and they want to sell them? I don't need this, but they don't have a choice.
Well, also because the mortgage rate could be so low.
Yeah, they have a low mortgage rate, so that's what's keeping them in their house. But the kitchen's old. You want to renovate a kitchen today with inflation? What's that cost?
Forget about it.
Minimum $70,000, $80,000, $90,000. You want to change your bathroom? $40,000, right? So I think there's a lot of homeowners out there who say, my rate's 3%. I'm not going anywhere because I'm not going to go pay 7%. But then when they go to Home Depot and they price out a kitchen remodel or add a deck or whatever it is, in today's inflationary world, it is costly. Right. And so now I'm going to go get a home equity line of credit. What do you think the rate is on that? 8%, 9%. So now you start to think to yourself, I can go get a new home. The builder will buy down the rate for me.
That's right.
The home will be smaller, but I'm going to get my brand new kitchen. I'm going to get an awesome lighting package. I'm going to be able to snap my fingers and all my lights are going to go on. That's cool, right? And so I think that it's just going to take time, because it was so fast that we went from 3 to 7 that people were in shock mode. And so I think it's just going to take time. I don't think we're going to be at 7 much longer. But my personal opinion is we're not getting to the 5s for a long while. I don't know what you think, Steve, but I mean, it would take to me, it's going to take an economic calamity to get us into the 5s, but it could happen.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's going to happen, but, so I just think that over time, that 11-year-old house that you've been in, your kids have left, right? Maybe there's a grandbaby out there somewhere you want to get closer to. Life, like Steve said, life happens, right? And so life changes don't mesh well with your 3% rate and you being married to your house.
Right. And people have a 3% interest rate, but when they had a 3% interest rate, their insurance was $300 a month. Now they got a 3% interest rate, but their insurance is $900 a month.
Yeah.
Especially in California, which we'll catch on later. But we can pretty much, homes above 500, we know they're going to fall in Vegas, and they're going to fall, depending on what you consider a lot, because the new homes have done it. The new homes have dropped their prices in many areas already. You could buy. So when you go to a new home development and you look at their pricing sheet, that's a lot very misleading, because what they do is they add lot premiums, right? So how much you pay for this house? $500. How much did you pay for this house? $500. No. That's what it said on the sheet. But how much did you pay for it? Oh, I paid $500 plus a lot premium of $75,000. Oh, so you paid $575. Yeah, I paid $500 with the lot premium. No. You paid $575, right? So you have builders now that are removing those lot premiums, right? So the price on the sheet has stayed the same or gone up a little. But in reality, if you drive that neighborhood and you pull all those streets up, go on the tax record, and you'll see what those people paid. They paid 10, 20, 30% more than what you could get that house at today.
Yeah.
And in addition, a lot of these new builders, they're opening up their own insurance companies, or they're brokering out.
Self-insuring, yeah.
Because guess what? The first 10 years,
no problem.
Nothing's going to happen.
Nothing's going to happen.
Nothing big.
My friend just closed on a brand new house, 1,800 square foot house, 1880 square foot, $550,000. Guess how much his insurance was? $24 a month, home insurance. If they wanted to pay for the whole year, guess how much? $292.
Wow.
$292.
So self-insured by the builder.
They brokered it out to, I think, Mercury or something. But who's not going to take it?
Yeah.
And that is going to also cause insurance for resales to go up, because now those insurance companies that are insuring the resale market, they're not going to be able to have a pool of old homes and new homes. So the old homes are going to cost us more. The new homes aren't going to cost that much, but we charge the new homes a little bit more. Now they can't do that. Now they're going to have 20 old ones instead of 10 new ones and 10 old ones, because these people that used to go to the traditional insurance companies for their new house are now going to use the builder's home insurance company.
So the bottom line is, at this particular time, it's better to go buy a new home where you basically, they're buying down the rate. This is not good for you, I guess, right? They're buying down the rate.
Yeah.
Then they're using their own insurance or their broken insurance that's cheaper.
But what happens? But here's the issue. What happens when you buy a new one? You're a homeowner. You're going to go buy a new home. What do you need to do? you need to sell your old one, which is a resale. So it creates a transactions. People from California, I mean, even on the resale, when someone says, yeah, my insurance is, $500 a month, it used to be 200, people in California are like, 500? That's it?
Nothing.
Yeah. And California, they're in big trouble. I didn't, I don't see how home prices, I used to think, how can California home prices drop since they're not building any, right? I mean, they're building it's basically nothing, right? Or apartments, right? Because LA, all this, LA, they got that mansion tax and, permits, all this stuff. So anyways, building new homes is very rare in California. Well, they have a huge problem right now with insurance. And like I said about 7 months ago, the biggest impact is not going to be interest rates. It's going to be insurance. And today in California, the average person is having to go on the California Fair Program. Low risk people are now being forced on the California Fair Program. That was only for high risk. Well, the California Fair Program is 300%, 400% increase.
So California is subsidizing insurance costs. That's what the program Steve's talking about. The state's subsidizing, right?
But here's the thing.
For insurance.
Yes.
Hey, they're charging 300 to 400% more than the normal insurance companies, right? And they're still broke. What does that tell you? That tells you that those insurance companies, even if they charge 300% more, it still won't work out for them.
Bad business model in California.
Yeah. And see, what happened is California limited what they could charge. Well, these insurance companies, the reason why they're not taking low risk on is because the insurance company's like, yeah, we have enough policies in California. We can't do anymore. Yeah, but I'm low risk. Sorry, we're at capacity. So now the low risk people can't get insurance because the insurance companies are like, yeah, we can't do anymore because we're forced to, we're limited on how much we can charge. So now State Farm did a 17% increase. Now they need another 30% increase. Well, if they don't get it, State Farm says we're out. Look, you just proved by California Fair Program. And homeowners in California are playing Russian roulette right now with insurance because California Fair Program only goes to $3 million. They might raise it to $4 million. But let's say your house is worth $6 million and you're on the California Fair Program. Well, if something happens, you lose that $2 million. And on top of that, good luck getting money because the California Fair Program is broke, right? And there was a LA Times did an article on this. I think it was LA Times. They had this elderly lady sitting in front of her lot, burned out lot. Where's my $547,000? She hasn't even got her $547,000 yet. So these are the people that paid into this program that's broke. And the idea of getting the money, what their plan was the insurance companies were going to pay half. And then the other part, the insurance companies, the part that was, they're broke. So the insurance companies were going to pay 50% of the that need to be paid. And then the other 50%, they were going to charge their policyholders. So every policyholder in California, no matter what, was going to get anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000, probably closer to $4,000, assessment on their policy. That was part of the California Fair Program. Well, that's how they were going to get the money to pay these people. But a consumer watchdog group sued and said, wait a minute, you can't charge these consumers $2,000 to $4,000 to pay somebody else's insurance. You can't do that. So now that's held up in court. And now these people that are owed money by the California Fair Program, where are they going to get it from?
Right.
The California Fair Program.
And meanwhile,
also,
you're putting more people on this program?
But is this specific to with the fires as well? That's always been around.
No,
insurance was high.
No. It's insurance. The biggest problem for insurance companies in California too is water damage. Look how many they have water damage there too. The old homes they have. Hey, just like we were talking about that kitchen. Well, guess what? The insurance companies, they're paying 40 to 50% more to redo those kitchens, redo that house, redo that
because
roof.
there was a water leak or something burst, right?
Yeah. So guess what? For the last 20 years, California has been subsidizing the home prices in California. Because if your payment is $500 to $1,000 to $2,000 less, you're willing to pay more for that house. I'll buy that $2 million house. What's my payment? $7,000. Is that everything? Yeah, that's everything. Well, yeah, my insurance is only $500 because California put a cap on what the insurance companies could charge. Well, if that wasn't there, the true cost of that insurance would have been $2,000 a month. So now your payment's $8,000-9,000. Why are you going to pay $2 million for that house? I'll give you $1 million for that house.
Right. Now you know why everybody's moving here, David. But let's go back to something you said that I kind of gave you an eye roll. Is it better to buy a new house than a resale? sometimes. I think that what you got to do is you have to figure out your budget, figure out what you want, and you got to go look at new because they're buying down your rate, they're giving you their own insurance. There's a lot of benefits. But to Steve's point, there's also sellers willing to discount. So I think you also got to go look at a resale and see if you can't make a great deal on a resale, right? And so it's still
compare it,
and still the price per square foot. You're going to get more house out in the resale market than you probably are new, right? Those newer homes are being built smaller for the most part.
Small backyard.
Yeah, it depends. Yeah.
Depends upon the area and so on. I got a good question for you in regards to high rises over the years.
But here's the thing with the new homes too. Like if somebody wants a pool with these
the
crazy
limit pool thing?
regulations that they put in Vegas, people are like, wait, I can only build that size of a pool?
600 square feet.
Yeah.
Max, right.
I get confused when that happens. So it's right now a new pool.
600 square feet. No more.
What's a normal pool?
I mean, you have pools in Vegas
I
that
wonder
are
what mine is.
They're huge.
Yeah, what by what is your pool?
I don't know. That's a good question.
It's probably bigger than
but 600 is the max.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of people are coming to Vegas going, you know what, we're going to Arizona. And homeowners got to realize too, listen, the number one buyer for your home, California Exodus, is Californians. Well, guess what? You're not just competing against your neighbor of the new homes. Now you're competing against Arizona. Because Arizona prices, there's many areas that are down 25, 30%, and they got 30,000 homes on the market right now in Phoenix. So now I once was going to come in Vegas, but guess what? I got to go look at Phoenix now too. I can get any pool I want. I can get a big yard, and the house is $300. That same house in Vegas is $450.
I thought Arizona was always more expensive in general when I looked things up. Scottsdale, Phoenix.
It's still more expensive, but not by much. It kind of mirrors our market usually.
Yeah, there's areas because don't forget, Phoenix, they can actually build houses, and Phoenix is much. And look, you got Arizona. If you're a younger generation, what's more likely for you to get a better paying job, Vegas or Phoenix?
Because Phoenix is expanding more. It's also larger, right?
Oh, Phoenix has high tech, high this. They got a better education system. So Vegas has to pay attention to that. We can't just in this current condition, we can't just rely on the California Exodus, right? And the locals, even if prices drop 20% and rates drop to 6%, 70-80% of locals still couldn't afford it because when prices were 20% less and the rates were 5.5%, only about 75 to 80% of people still couldn't afford it in Vegas.
I'm actually curious now what the average income is in Phoenix, Arizona compared to Vegas.
We'd have to look that up. But the other advantage Phoenix has is they've been able to grow width-wise. I mean, the land's owned by private people, and in Southern Nevada, the land's all owned by the government. So it's a challenge, right, to free that up. In Phoenix, they've been able to make Phoenix very, very wide. I mean, there's obviously communities all over.
Huge,
yeah, tons.
In regards to high rises, I'm just curious. I know we had some different topics, but high rises. How come over the last all these years, I always think that I have a unit at Sky and Allure. Why are they not building other high rises? Like in Florida, now we see that all these units are available and there may be a crash there more because there's so much. When we go to other cities, you see them building all these high rises. But in Vegas, I understand people always say the cost has gone up. But over the last 10, 15 years, right, even like Trump, next to Trump, there could have been a second Trump Tower. All these other places save second space to build. How come it never build?
Well, the condos, not high rises, but regular condos.
High rise condos like Sky, Allure, Trump.
Yeah,
Palms Place.
The reason why there's no condos, regular condos in Vegas, the main reason why is what developers said is, too many lawsuits. The construction defects are like, you know what, we ain't building condos anymore because these guys are just killing us on these ridiculous lawsuits. So the cost to get insurance, all that, it doesn't make it cost effective. So you could probably say the same thing with the high rises, but I don't know why they're not building more high rises. But I mean, what's the market for high rises right now? There's a huge market. There's a lot of inventory for high rises right now. And I wouldn't touch any condo or high rise right now unless I knew for sure the HOA was legit. I mean, the HOAs, I wouldn't touch a condo right now in Vegas with these HOAs because even if the HOA says, yeah, we're okay, well, did you audit that? Yeah, okay, well, where did you get those numbers? So you got a bunch of people running these HOAs that have no real estate experience most of the time and a lot of time no accounting experience.
Yeah. And
they're making decisions like deferring maintenance based on, you know what? I'm going to sell this condo in 2 years. I'm going to put it on the market right now. I'm going to defer the maintenance. I'm going to keep the HOA low. So we're going to dip into the reserves and pay all the increase in insurance. And I'm going to sell my condo. Well, now we're seeing, this. I mean, how many condos are blacklisted right now in Las Vegas? Thousands of units.
Well, you used to always say it was a hard time with the financing situation, and then people
Well,
I mean, you still
because
follow-
like Steve's saying, the HOA has to keep up on the insurance demands,
Okay.
and so if they don't have enough coverage, right, so
They raise the
your
HOAs.
HOA every 2 years does a reserve study, right, and so and in that reserve study they tell them how much they should have in reserves. Not as many HOAs listen to that reserve study as they should, and so it could make financing more difficult if you don't have enough coverage in your building. And with insurance rates going up, a lot of them have ignored that, and they're keeping their insurance premiums were there, so it makes the project tougher to lend in. But there is one new high-rise going up, Cello Tower in Symphony Park, right?
Oh, yeah, there's one downtown.
Downtown.
Is that hotel or high rise?
It's a high-rise.
That's
So it's
Cello, right?
Cello. So it's going to be interesting to see, I mean, I followed them online, and it sounds like their pre-sales are going okay,
Yeah.
but who knows for sure? Because that's the first one being built, to your point, in a very long time. But I think it's to Steve's point. Literally, the day you open, you're going to get hammered with a construction litigation lawsuit. And then I own a unit at the one. My HOA
Loft?
dues at the
Oh,
one
yeah.
Las Vegas, and so my HOA dues when I bought that place were $300 a month. Now they're $1,000 a month.
Wow.
Right, and I'm on the 4th floor, and so yeah, I mean, there's some people been there paying $2,000 a month, and so the HOA, it's not the best proposition, especially because probably most buyers of a high rise in Las Vegas are second homers, and at some point it's just not worth it, right? I mean, you might as well go have a house and let somebody manage your house.
Is it that much? Wow. The
Yeah,
HOA?
at the one I'm paying $1,000 a
You know,
month
that's
HOA.
one location
let's
I've never
say-
went inside. Of all the places, that's the one.
You should come
That's
check
the
it.
one.
It's a cool place.
I mean, but that's what he's saying is true throughout most of the condos and high
Goes back to the
rises.
insurance situation.
1,000,
Yeah.
and like he was saying, your condo might not be blacklisted now, but the HOA might say, hey, our insurance is going to go up 75% if we meet the requirements that these lenders want. We ain't going to do it. Well, yeah, now your value is going to go down, and your HOA might be, you might say $50 a month or $100 a month or $200, whatever it is, but your condo or your high rise is going to drop a lot because you're going to lose all the lenders. The HOA, that's crazy. $1,000.
Yeah,
a
and
month
somebody asked me the other day, what amenities they add? Nothing.
Nothing.
They didn't add
No.
any amenities.
Where?
At the one. It's
Tennis court?
they already had it. They've had tennis court, and they have an incredible gym. I mean, they have great
It's cheaper to
pools.
stay in the RV park next door.
100%.
maintenance- But don't forget, these condos and high rises, what do they have? They got maintenance. Maintenance
Right.
is up 30, 40%. Their insurance is up who knows how much. And then these HOAs, when there's litigation and stuff, the insurance covers that. So the insurance company's like, hey, we're just going to add it to you. We're just going to add it to all these, HOAs. We're going to add it to the insurance cost. So we don't care. The people need to step up and start fighting it back against these ridiculous lawsuits. I mean, even when there's legitimate lawsuits, you give them crazy amount of money. Well, the insurance companies are paying that. No, we're paying that. We're all paying it. And then these people trying to sell these condos, they're not going to be able to get in. And if you're an investor and you're buying a condo right now, that's an unfunded liability because you don't know
The future.
Yeah, and the older the condo, you've seen these townhomes on TV, these older townhomes that are all over the news right now with, they don't have enough money to fix this, fix that. They just passed a law in Carson City that now when these not high rises, condos or townhomes, whatever, the maintenance needs to be redone or plumbing or roofing, they can add like an LID to it, right? Well, that's still going to go on the unit. So,
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about we have about 8 minutes left. Clear cooperation policy, right? We talked about falling prices over $600,000, which is like a little bit more higher end, right? Under $400,000 homes, medium prices in general like that. Insurance crisis, based insurance going up. It's not a good situation. I guess insurance. The one walkaway today is like, wow, insurance really, because you keep thinking about it in California, but it affects us here as well.
Everywhere.
Buyers paying 40% hidden fee to the portals. I guess that's because the agents are making the money that they're basically putting it back
They don't
to the
pay a
buyers.
hidden fee. They just don't realize
it.
that when they buy that the lead generation company is taking 40%. So it changes the nature of the transaction.
you just described a hidden fee. It's not a hidden fee. They just don't know they're paying it. I love it.
One thing I get confused with this hidden fee
'Cause see, look,
situation, it's the
if you look
agent.
at-
The agent's paying it, but you're trying to say the agents are raising their.
No, the
So, no,
buyers
so
are
look-
paying it.
yeah.
When you
Yeah.
buy a house for $600,000, is the agent paying $600,000?
No.
Is the title company paying $600,000?
No.
The buyer is.
Yeah.
And so if I say, oh, hey Dave, I'm gonna charge you $600, but $50,000 of that was going to the landscaper for the next 5 years, do you think that was legit? No, you would have got your own landscaper. You would have negotiated with that landscaper not to charge you $50,000. Well, guess what? That now with a lot of these, I call it the portal tax, right? This is a portal tax. People are being taxed. They don't know about it, right? Or hidden fees. Well, this is impacting the buyers without them knowing. Buyers are losing houses because their agent won't negotiate the commission on the sell side because they're not going to make enough. We've already seen it happen many times. So if the buyer knew that their agent was doing this, they wouldn't have used that agent, or they would told the agent, hey, I want to negotiate part of that 25, 30, 40, 50, or 60% too, because what kind of value is that bringing to the table? Nothing. And that's a direct call to clear cooperation policy. What are you doing to prevent this? Why don't you have it on the MLS that, hey, if you use us direct or if you get these agents from these sites, this is how much these agents charge. This is how much these agents, this is how much this portal charges. This is how much this portal charges. The buyers and sellers need to know this.
It literally just happened to me last week. Last week, I had a great buyer, makes an offer on a house. They're using an agent from one of these big lead generation companies. I don't want to mention which one. Counter comes in, and the counter had reduced the commission for the buyer's agent down to 1%. Well, because of what they're paying for the lead, they couldn't afford to accept that, right? They never presented the counter to my buyer. My buyer ends up having to fire the agent and then going back and making an offer a week later with a different agent. Now, she didn't even know any of this stuff was happening until she went back to her non-lead generation agent who had sold her house before in tears, saying, I don't understand why I can't get this house. He reviewed the agreement, talked to the other agent, and turned out that he got a copy of the counter that was never presented. Counter wasn't presented because the buyer's agent wasn't going to make enough money. That's not fair.
I got several examples that are similar to that. In fact, we just had one close a few days ago that the agent specifically said, I can't do that because I'm not going to make any money because I got to pay. And he broke down what he had to pay. Well, I told him, I don't care. We will call the buyer direct and we'll let them know, oh, you can't do that. Oh, we can't do that because you're a breach agreement because you didn't tell that buyer what's going on.
Yeah,
so you're going to reduce your commission or we're going to call that buyer direct because the seller and the buyer were talking. So you got 10 minutes to send that back. Boom, 10 minutes, we got it back. Because they know if you call them out on it and you contact that buyer, they're in breach of contract, among other things, let alone the code of all that stuff, right? I don't care about all that. But the breach of contract, when you're hurting consumers, you don't got no call on that. You got no call on that, and you cannot justify that action.
I wrote here, luxury agents losing deals to Zillow Flex. Did we cover that? I don't think so.
Oh, that's huge. That's like, so Zillow Flex is the greatest lead generation ever existed, right? Because they're the main. They're very smart. They're taking advantage of clear cooperation policies, and they've been able to bring in these consumers. Right, the Zillow, the luxury used to be a little niche, right? Well, all my friends that are Zillow Flex are getting phenomenal luxury leads. My buddy just got a $5 million listing. I mean, all over the country, not just Vegas. I have another friend at Zillow Flex here in Vegas. He got a $1.8 million buyer. He got a $3 million lead that he showed him 5 houses and then put them into escrow. $3 million lead.
Never, 10 years ago.
And then he got another one for 1.2. I have another agent. She got a 1.8 million. This is Zillow Flex agent, not my agent. A 1.8 listing, and then that 1.8 is 1.2 buyer. And I can go on and on and on. Well, these were luxury deals that used to go to the luxury agents and the luxury listing, right? Like we were just talking about this. One of your buddies is a top luxury listing. Well, he agent. He doesn't get those buyers anymore. So their business has gone. When you the old days when you got a listing, you'd get buyer leads off that. That doesn't happen anymore because they're being redirected. And nobody feels it more than that right now. The luxury market but the luxury agents are doing some things to fight back. So we'll see how that turns out.
One thing I've always been confused. I always see these different realtors that say that they're a luxury agent and they market like the higher end stuff like that. But how the hell? I guess for the regular consumer, you're looking for that luxury agent. Now Zillow Flex basically are supplying the leads for buyers, and it is more for high end or for regular end, right? But like, it wasn't like different. You don't have to be like a luxury agent is not a specific specialist, right? You're just marketing.
They do have a specialty that you can sign up for, but at the end of the day, 10 years ago, the luxury buyers, the luxury sellers didn't go to Zillow. Like Zillow was more. They looked for the luxury agent. They wanted to be in the magazines. They wanted to have these big spreads. They wanted these flyers sent out, these 4-page flyers sent out to
ones,
1,000 homes, right? So
premium quality stuff.
technology has destroyed them because now $5 million customers are going on Zillow, right? Because they don't care about the magazine. They know who's reading the magazine, right? It's, you know, so who's even opening a flyer anymore? By the time I produce a flyer and send the flyer out, I want my house sold, right? I'm better off going to Zillow today. My house may sell in the next 3 days versus me waiting 4 to 6 weeks for a flyer to go out across the country, right? So Zillow has hurt the luxury agent. Now, there's still a specialty, I think. But you have to do a really great job of branding yourself. You got to be really heavy in social media. You got to sell an image. I think that you can penetrate the Zillow world, but you have to.
But it's tough.
Yeah, you got to.
The problem is that people are trained now, like it's muscle memory that people go to Zillow.
Hey, it's going to be a lot harder now. We were just talking about this because, you know, part of the clear cooperation policy, there's some, you know, fallout from that. Part of it is, you know, you have to have that listing on the MLS within 24 hours. So Zillow says, you know, check this out, look it up yourself, but I'm paraphrasing. If you don't have that listing on the market in MLS and on Zillow in 24 hours, Zillow may not put it on Zillow at all. So now if you're a luxury agent and you're saying, yeah, you know, I got this special website where all these high net worth people go to, well, that, you know, that site is basically worthless now because once you get a listing, if you put it on your specialty site where these high net worth people go, it has to be on Zillow and the MLS within 24 hours.
Yeah.
Once you get the
So
listing.
now, I mean, the Kings,
before they used to put it more on the luxury sites and stuff like that.
Yeah, because they have luxury buyers too. So they could say, look, I have 1,000 people in my database who've all bought $1 million homes, and we're going to spend the first 30 days just marketing to them. We're going to hammer on them. We're going to send them to my special
and before
website.
Before you didn't have to put on the MLS right away.
No, you could before clear cooperation policy, you could market and you know, clear cooperation policy helps and hurts companies. Anytime a policy is created where it hurts and helps companies, it should be abolished. Okay, there shouldn't be something where if I do this, it's going to help me. It's going to be able to charge consumers more. If I do this, it's going to help this company. No, that's not a truly free market. Let the open market, free market justify exactly who's the best, who can get the most money. The market will determine that. And, you know, King Zillow just came down with the hammer with that ploy because now if you're a luxury, and you see a lot of these luxury companies are going, oh, whoa, we don't want to do this. This is not, you know, we're not going to honor this. And they're trying to fight back, but it's too late. And, you know, it's what King Zillow did to the franchises as far as searches, remember, you're listing your lead. Remember those franchises, a lot of them used to recruit you. You're listing your lead. Well, that doesn't exist anymore, right? Yep. And now they're hitting the luxury brand, the luxury niche, and Zillow's making a huge headway. And it's going to be interesting to see how powerful they are because the longer this policy lasts, you're going to see this impact the luxury market, how it was done in the past. And you're going to see many of the luxury agents be turned into a commodity. And we're already seeing that. That's not my opinion because all you got to do is go look at all the luxury listings. There's a lot of agents out there that have only done 1 or 2 transactions in 5 years, but they got a 2 or 3, 1 and 2 or 3, $4, $5 million listing.
That didn't happen before.
Happens all the time now.
Now it's regular.
And what about the buyer sites? Right. These agents that have never done a high end or hardly, there's a lot of agents out there. Their first, you know, one of their first 10 or 15 deals is a $1, 2, 3, 4, $5 million deal. Because they're getting off a lead gen site.
What's more people going on Zillow these days? Redfin, or was it Homes.com is really trying to push, right?
I think it's Zillow number 2, Zillow, Homes.com, Realtor.com, and then Redfin. Redfin is a very, very small piece, but King Zillow dominates.
Yeah, so Zillow's the top one, okay.
Yeah.
And see, that's why when King Zillow makes the rules, NAR adjust. You saw NAR just had some meetings, and they made some adjustments. Well, yeah, you did, because King Zillow already made those adjustments. And see, the MLSs, they're going to do whatever King Zillow says because the MLSs, they're scared right now. They're dinosaurs. They're relics. So what they're trying to do is stay relevant. The way they stay relevant is to feed King Zillow, right? Because if Zillow says, you know what, agents, you can start putting your listings on Zillow and not worry about the MLS. Well, if that happens, the MLS is right now, King Zillow has it made easy because once the listing goes in the MLS, Zillow gets it right away and then puts it out there. So it's less work. But if Zillow says, you know what, we're going to create our own MLS and we're going to have our own agents. Yeah, we're going to have a national MLS. We're going to have a national MLS. You don't need these MLSs. It's ridiculous that we don't have a national MLS.
They could do
right
that
now.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
They could literally do that. They could literally wipe out every MLS tomorrow.
And we don't need 500 MLS.
Zillow's looking probably be very happy, right? If all these MLSs went out of business, Zillow's
Oh,
in
they'd
control.
be thrilled. But
so King Zillow becomes.
and it's actually interesting why they haven't done it. I
So
mean,
they don't
why is
need
there no national MLS?
because they don't need to do it.
Well,
right
because the MLSs are pushing back. Because if we have a national MLS, we don't need these 500-600 local MLSs. I mean, look how archaic our MLS is compared to what Zillow and all these guys are.
How advanced technology is.
Why are buyers, when I send an MLS link, why do so many buyers send me a Zillow or a Redfin link after they saw the house
Way
on
easier
MLS?
to search. Way easier to search. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And don't forget, Gary Keller just cut a deal with the parent company for CoreLogic. So he sees the writing on the wall. The problem is he's a little too late because Zillow pretty much
Corner the market, right?
Yeah, but with that new policy, it hurts the MLSs, right? It doesn't hurt. It helps the MLSs, but it hurts what the CoreLogic. So now it's harder for Gary to create his own website to where people will go there, because if Gary tries to create a Keller Williams MLS site, it's not going to work because you have to have it on Zillow and the MLS within 24 hours.
All right.
So that law, that policy inhibits competition greatly.
To wrap things up, I want to ask you both questions for basically for investment for people that want to invest in the future. But I have one quick question. In regards to EXP, we talked about this before. Are things worse now? I always ask you for explanation of EXP. People go to EXP. My wife basically their brokerage place was trying to go to EXP. They did. And then we wound up leaving. Are EXP agents, are they better now than they were, or are things worse now for them? Because of whatever economic times or whatever's going on. Because like I used to talk about that almost a year ago when that happened with EXP. Would you say things are worse for EXP agents now? Because they're definitely not making the residual, like the whole multi-level marketing concept that I know of doesn't really exist because there's not that many agents that are out there. People are not selling and buying as much.
There's several downlines, right? So that's too much of a broad question. That's like saying, are Keller Williams agents doing good, or independent agents doing good? Well, yeah, I can look. There's a lot of Zillow Flex accounts at EXP. So those EXP accounts that are Zillow Flex, yeah, they're killing it, right? Because they're dominating that market. But if you're an EXP agent and you're not on that Zillow Flex team in that market, you're getting a listing, and that buyer lead's going to your competitor, unless you're in their downline, right? So if you're not in their downline. And the CEO, Leo, from EXP, he's a big promoter of the Clear Cooperation policy and the Zillow policy. Well, you have a lot of Zillow Flex accounts, So if you have a lot of Zillow Flex accounts, then you're going to do what Zillow says, and that's really helping them. But what we've seen in the past, when you rely on a company to generate your leads, that's a problem. You need to, look what Keller Williams, look at, all these other companies that used to partner with Zillow. It's not partner, but they would... Actually, yeah, because
collaborate.
Well, no, you like a lot of companies. If you went to work for them and you got a listing on Zillow, it would only be you. Like there wouldn't be. Remember, they used to have 3 agents on the side. Well, if you come work for our company, we have a deal with Zillow where on your listings only you will be featured. Well, that was a reason to go there. Well, once Zillow got everybody in there, they were smart like a Trojan horse and said, you know what, we're not doing that no more. This is what we're going to do now. And that, look, every company and all the top companies in Vegas used to, one of their strategy was they would pay, Zillow anywhere from 10 to 100 grand a month to bring in buyer leads. And then they would shuffle off those leads to their agents, new agents, and then that broker, that team lead would take 50%. Well, Zillow's like,
especially to pay for the leads.
Yeah, so Zillow's like, well, why don't we just do that? So then Zillow switched and said, hey, we're going to take that 40%. Eventually, Zillow will be charging 50%, I would say, the next 12 to 18 months because they can. But the big companies out here, they used to take those leads and give them to their agents, and they would collect the 50%. Now, Zillow's taken that, Zillow Flex portion, and it's huge. Go look at I encourage everyone to go look at all the real estate stocks from the time the Clear Cooperation policy was put into place and now. And watch how, after the first year of Clear Cooperation policy, what happened to the real estate stocks besides King Zillow? Who benefits the most from this? They do. They're geniuses because, see, real estate, like Keller Williams, and not just Keller Williams, but the franchises, they're fractured, right? They're not one company. Compass, EXP, Redfin, they're all one company. So they're able to maneuver for another show, but we'll talk about that later.
Last question I have for both of you guys in general. I'm always asking the same question, which I asked years ago when I mentioned Trish Nash, was a police officer, and Michael, the husband's up. What would you do today for investment wise. Now, it doesn't have to be in Vegas. If I have $50,000 and I want to basically invest in the future, I mean, years ago, it's great, right? 2009 to today, the market basically went up. It was a foreclosure market. Government gets involved. Basically, now they really wouldn't be a drop for $200,000-$300,000, maybe a 20% correction, or if we want to call it AKA crash. What would you do with 50 grand today? You want to buy real estate, like my kid, right? My kid's 10 years old, turning 11, 6 years from now. What's the best investment these days? Are we saying stay local here in Vegas? If you're in Vegas, and go buy FHA, go buy a fourplex, leverage. What would you do? Would you take 50 grand, go to other states where you can go buy homes that are 100 grand, that cash flow? What would you do? Give me 3 tips. That's my big question these days of realtors. 3 tips that you would do for an investment for the future for you and your children.
Well, I think I'd want to be cash flow positive, which would be very difficult to be today, or be very, very close to cash flow positive, meaning that if I had a mortgage and it was $1,000 a month, I'd want to make sure I was getting at least $900 a month, $800 a month in rent. I wouldn't want to be going too far upside down today. And so I'm not sure $50,000 to get that done in Las Vegas today. So I would look to other markets, and I would look to markets that are trending up in terms of employment. And you probably got to look to the South or the Midwest and those areas. And because if you're going to do that and you're not going to live in those cities, you're going to have to hire a property manager as well. So you're going to have to find you got to find a team, right? And so I would probably start there. I do think it's critically important to get on the ladder of home ownership no matter what's going on, because nobody can time the market. So I think that you have to, if you can't afford to buy your own house to live in with $50,000, or it's just going to be too expensive for you to do it in Las Vegas, then go buy investment properties in other cities. But I would probably try to buy 2 or 3 in the same city so that my property management fees went down a little bit and it wasn't as difficult to manage. And then the other thing that I would just know that I wouldn't be afraid to do it. I would pull the trigger, because I love telling this analogy to home buyers today, which is if you go back to September 2020, right? We are embroiled in COVID, right? Interest rates are 2.9%. The median sales price in Las Vegas was $333,000, right? And 40% of people in Fannie Mae survey said it was a bad time to buy a house. It turned out to be one of the greatest times to buy a house in our history, right? Mortgage rates have nearly tripled, home prices nearly doubled, and it was the second biggest September for home sales in our history. But 40% of people in that moment thought it was a bad time to buy a house, even though they were sitting in the greatest buying opportunity ever. So I think you step up, you do it, you take your $50,000, you get it out on the streets in the terms of home ownership, but you got to find the right community to do it in.
It's funny. My wife always says, we should have bought during COVID. We should have bought during COVID. Like, you were lucky that people were paying the rents. Luckily we actually had a bunch of Section 8 that the payments were going through.
Yeah.
But what happens if no one was making the payments? The mortgage payments were still going through.
Well,
but it was a good time to buy if you were able to hold the money.
And your point, it probably wasn't a good time to buy investment, because of what you said. The government was making it so you didn't have to pay rent. So
in California, those investors, they're still not recovering. They're still in the hole.
You got to be careful of that as an investor, right? As an investor, because you got to make sure you collect your rents.
Yes.
So I wouldn't buy it in California. I would be careful of certain
People are still
states.
behind the California.
Or Oregon, or Washington,
be careful.
or New York. You got to buy in states that are, not crazy, right? I mean, even San Diego's a nut place now, bro.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
People saying to buy in red states. All right, what are your thoughts? $50,000, your kid, your daughter. What do you do for the future for them?
Yeah, basically same thing with
Same thing?
Aaron said. Yeah, but except like he added at the end, make sure you're buying in a place where you're going to be able to collect rents, because now you go up down Vancouver, Canada, Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, L.A. It all came down south, and everyone thought San Diego was safe. No, San Diego, it's hard to collect rent now there too.
Yeah. Make sure you collect your rents. Right. Go,
Yeah.
And you said...
Is that what they say the red states, more Republican states, right?
I wouldn't just say red states. I'd say just be careful of very liberal governments that if something goes sideways, like a pandemic or something, is going to cut off rents.
Wait,
right?
There's no pandemic in California right now. People can't get paid. Or Seattle, or Portland.
So that's a great point. Be careful of landlord rules. So research the landlord rules and know what it takes to kick people out. Right? If they have a law in place that you can't kick people out, they make you got to go to court or something to kick, then avoid that area.
Yeah.
Right?
And guess what? All those areas that have these great tenant laws have the highest rents, horrible for tenants, and the biggest shortage. California has over 2 million vacant homes sitting empty because millions of those people, many of those people don't want to rent it out because it's too risky to rent it out because they don't want to get people out. That's, in the Wall Street Journal, they did the article after the fires. There's 200,000 homes that are vacant in Los Angeles because people don't want to rent them out. And it's like a savings account because they're going up, 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 up because they're not building, they're not renting, and they're not selling. So guess what? Prices are going up.
Even if it's
And David, if you look at the hedge funds, right? The hedge funds don't care about values going up. They only care about rent, right? So that's why they bought all those houses in Vegas. That's why they still buy in Vegas. That's why they're not selling homes in Vegas because they know rents, even if they're flat right now, will continue to go up. So to your point, if you go buy for $50,000, so you got to put 20% down. So you're going to be able to get, $200,000 to $300,000 worth of real estate. If you go to an area where those homes are $150,000, $125,000, yeah, you're not going to crush it in equity, but over time, that rent is going to continue to go up and up and up. And so if you start to think like the hedge funds, those guys aren't making bad decisions, because they know that real estate can be cyclical. They didn't buy based on selling; they bought based on renting.
Long-term rental income, cash flow. But I like what you said in regards to the appointment going up. Well, listen, I appreciate you guys covered a lot of stuff. We basically got an hour and 15 minutes of talking here, which went by pretty quick. Anyway, so Aaron, I appreciate Guild Mortgage. My goal basically is with the problem solver is to basically, if someone wants to call a problem solver, they need a mortgage agent, I refer people as well. 702-999-111 is the number for the problem solver. Problemsolver.vegas is the app and so on. So if anybody's listening and they want me to connect Aaron, that's great. I will do that. Guild Mortgage. Again, Steve Hawks, I appreciate all your insight as well. There's always something going on. I always laugh. Every day it's like there's something new. But I appreciate Steve as well. Wealth of knowledge. Actually, it's funny. I told John T, my co-host that's not here today, I said, we're bringing Steve on. I was like, Steve again? I'm like, yeah, who else is going to talk about real estate all the time? And John T's my co-host who's also a realtor. But not everybody has knowledge and experience and is following as this much, and things are changing.
Well, what makes Steve special, and I was just talking about him to another agent today, is that Steve, most agents are always coming from the positive end. Steve just tells it like it is, right? And so now sometimes I think he goes a little on the negative side, but at least he's being truthful with you, right? He's not telling you got to go out and buy a house today. He's telling you the pros and cons, and that's all you really want today, especially in a time of fear. You need transparency. You want somebody who lays it out for you and lets you make the decision.
This actually saves me money because this is my therapist.
That's why. That's one issue with realtors, and ask the public. Too many realtors gaslight. And you can't gaslight in the last 5-10 years because technology there. So everything you're saying, I mean, I see with my eyes. I go on Zillow. I mean, you can't. I see what's going on. So a good example is Josh Altman. And I've done an event with him before. He's super honest, tells it like it is, and doesn't gaslight. Well, after the fires, he said he was on Fox or one of those and said, hey, these people aren't coming back. They're not going to be able to build. 50 to 75% of these people aren't coming back. These families aren't going to come back 5 years from now because their kids are in school and all that. And it's going to be a nightmare to try and rebuild. And he was going all the scenario, what was going to happen. And then the next day, all these realtors came on and gave him a hard time. Oh, that's not right. We're going to rebuild. They're coming back. He's being negative. He's blah, blah, blah. They're giving him a hard time. Well, guess what? Josh Altman was right every single thing he said. Why? Because he was telling the truth. Yeah. So all those realtors that were talking trash about him, that owe him a big fat apology, and maybe they should learn something from Josh about not gaslighting your people. And that's a perfect example. He don't gaslight, right? And that's why he's one of the top realtors in the country.
Not to go too long, but those, I have a buddy of mine who owns a home in Pacific Palisades. Strangely enough, his home didn't burn. He show you a picture of his house because it was built in concrete most recently. He doesn't have a house around him for a mile, right? And he literally, so you said, every single of none of his neighbors are rebuilding. They're taking their insurance money, they're selling their land to developers, and they're going to buy houses elsewhere. They have no interest in building houses.
For the build.
Yeah. Especially in California.
2-3 years, right?
Especially in California with all the red tape.
5 years?
Forget about it. 2 years. Good luck.
Oh, yeah.
Just what permits you mean?
2 years.
Look
How many permits have been pulled in Pacific Palisades? 4 so far. Altadena, a disaster. Look at Maui.
Look at Maui.
6 houses built.
I think 6 houses built in 2 years.
Yeah.
In Maui.
In 2 years, 6 houses.
So basically, commercial developers will take it over.
For sure.
Well, a lot of these developers don't even want that because right now, it's a nightmare. It's
residential developers will build big communities, but they got to assemble all that land first, so it's going to take them a long time.
And it's not going to be affordable because these builders are like, these developers are like, after all these regulations, I got to sell this house for $8 million. I can't do that.
Yeah. Can't afford to do it. Anyway, appreciate you guys both coming on the show. You guys are a wealth of knowledge. Thank you so much. Anyone that basically wants to get connected to Steve, let me know, 702-999-111. Thank you so much. Thanks for the problem solving. Any problems, please contact me. Have a good one.
Thank you.
you.